This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the platform you can use to build a website for your business. Choosing cinema lenses is like an artist choosing a brush. It affects both how the image looks and how easy it is for the artist to paint with it. In the latest edition of this series, let's look at 4 different sets of cinema lenses used in the film industry and examine both the look that they create as well as their practical and ergonomic capabilities. Since the explosion of large format sensor cameras in recent years, there's been a bit of a scramble to find vintage cinema lenses with enough coverage to be able to shoot on these cameras without vignetting. This is because the overwhelming majority of older cinema glass out there was designed for 35mm film, which is smaller than the capture area of modern full-frame or large format cameras. One very interesting set of large format vintage lenses are the Soviet Rehoused primes from IronGlass. Rather than regular lenses where the components are manufactured and then put together by a company, rehousing is when the glass from an existing lens is taken, which has old or undesirable ergonomics that make them difficult to work with, and is placed within a modern lens housing with well-calibrated focus and iris rings. This glass dates as far back as the 1950s. They were produced as still photography lenses in the Soviet Union based on the optical formulas of old Carl Zeiss lenses, which gave them a sharpness and solid optical performance. For example, the 20mm MIR-20M was based on the layout of the Carl Zeiss Jenner Flectagon, or the well-known 58mm Helios 44-2 was modeled on the Zeiss Biotar. The redesigned Russian glass used to make the lens elements came with some additional funky characteristics like dreamy flares, swirly bokeh, and a painterly texture. This meant that although the center of these lenses remained sharp, the focus on the edges would rapidly fall off and go soft in an almost anamorphic-like way. The bokeh swirls in a rounded pattern, making the little out-of-focus balls on the edge of the frame appear slanted and off-kilter. IronGlass has 2 versions of these rehoused lenses, with the newest Mark IIs, which were used on Dune Part 2, being far better. They come with improved close focus distances, a better focus system, and universal focus gear positions, meaning that when changing to different focal lengths, the focus motor will not need to be adjusted or moved. The full set covers 7 different focal lengths from a 20mm up to a 135mm, with stops of 3.6 for the wider lenses, faster T2.1 stops for the medium focal lengths, and T2.9 for the telephoto lens. As I mentioned, they can cover full frame, large format, and even the enormous Alexa 65 sensor, with the exception of the 20mm, which is limited to large format coverage only. Before we get to the next lens, I'd like to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. If you want to be a filmmaker, you need a website. This is like a freelancer's business card. Collaborators or clients can visit your site to get in contact and view a portfolio of your work. Squarespace makes setting up your website easy with their design intelligence system that uses AI technology which you can use to personalize your site. Then use Squarespace's other tools like SEO to get your site seen, or their payment and invoicing systems to simplify your workflow. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch your site, go to squarespace.com/indepthcine to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. From one vintage Russian lens set to another, let's move on to the Lomo Standard Speeds. Not to be confused with the square and round front Lomo anamorphics, These are spherical lenses designed for Super 35 cameras. As such, they aren't compatible with large format sensors unless you want to crop in to avoid the vignette. These were produced from around the 1970s onward, but unlike the IronGlass set, were designed as cinema lenses rather than still photography lenses. They range in focal lengths from the widest 18T3 through wide and medium T2.3 lenses up to a 75mm. They also made some telephoto Lomos all the way up to a 300mm T3.5, which are a bit rarer. They are small and light little lenses, which makes them nice to work with for handheld operation. The Lomos have quite a heavy, dreamy vintage look to them. Highlights, especially white colors, are rendered with a glowing halo effect, such as this shot which I took on the 18mm. If you focus on the white shirt, you'll see it has a halation effect that gives off a dreamy glow. When shot wide open, they aren't the sharpest lenses, however this does soften skin tones in a way that I find pleasing. Their flares are especially pretty and have a rounded rainbow dispersion. Overall, they have a beautiful, soft, dreamy look, however not without some practical downsides. The original lenses come in a very outdated housing, with minimal distance markings and, unusually, an iris ring on the front of the barrel, rather than the rear. Because the front of the lens turns to change the aperture, this means that these lenses cannot be used with a clip-on matte box that would clamp onto their fronts. Instead, you have to use a matte box mounted onto the rods. This adds a bit more weight to the camera and makes it trickier for certain builds such as a gimbal, where you'd want to lose the bottom mounted plate with rods. Of course, these issues would go away if you managed to find a nicely rehoused set. Another downside is the lack of close focusing ability. This frame is the closest that you'll be able to get to a subject on a 75mm, for example. This means that if you want to shoot any extreme close-ups, you'll need to add a diopter filter in front of the lens to be able to focus closer to the subject. Next, we'll fast forward in time a bit and look at a series of lightweight modern zoom lenses, the Angénieux EZ1, EZ2 and EZ3. These zooms were designed to slot into the marketplace between still photography lenses and high-end cinema zooms such as Angénieux's Optimo range. However, despite this placement, these clean-looking, well-designed lenses have seen a bunch of use on high-budget jobs in place of the Optimos, as well as on ENG-style work or documentary shoots. For instance, they're a favorite of DP Darius Wolski, who favors their image quality and ease of use. The EZ series were designed with an innovative interchangeable rear optics design, which allows the rear element to be exchanged between a Super 35 back and a full frame back, depending on what camera is being used and how much sensor coverage is required. In Super 35 mode, the EZ1 is a 30-90mm, the EZ2 is a 15-40mm, and the EZ3 is a 45-165mm, giving filmmakers a wide-angle zoom, a medium-range focal distance, and a telephoto option. In full-frame mode, their focal lengths change to 45-135, 22-60, and 68-250, covering a similar field of view on large format cameras. Like their other lightweight Optimo zooms, they have a clean, sharp cinematic look across the frame, as you would expect of most modern cinema lenses. The image quality remains consistent across the zoom range, meaning slow zooms can be done in camera without being very noticeable. They have a stop of T2.8 to 3 in full frame mode and T1.9 to 2 in Super 35 mode. Their front diameter is consistent across all zooms at 114mm, which makes it easier to interchange these lenses while maintaining the same matte box setup, which saves time. The EZ1 and EZ2 are also basically the same size and weight, which makes swapping between them easy. Their mount can also be swapped between PL, EF, RF or E mount depending on which camera it's being used with. Overall, they provide a very solid image, reliable performance, good build quality, and a high degree of flexibility on a range of different cameras. Ending with a modern set of fixed focal length lenses, we have the Zeiss Supreme Primes. The set offers a near full coverage of focal lengths from a 15mm wide angle to a 200mm telephoto. These primes can cover all sensors from Super 35 to full frame and beyond, making them Zeiss's newest flagship set of primes for large format cameras. If you're after an efficient set of spherical lenses with practical ergonomics and consistent performance, then these are the guys you want. They are clean across the frame and render details like skin textures with razor sharpness, even when wide open. Their fast stop of T1.5 means that they can be used in low light conditions, or be shot wide open to get a buttery smooth out of focus background. Each focal length is also consistent, meaning the color rendering will be the same no matter what lens you choose, unlike some vintage glass where certain focal lengths may be warmer or cooler than others. Most of the lenses have a 95mm front diameter and a standard positioning of iris and focus gears, making swinging between different lenses easy. However, their wide angle and telephoto focal lengths like the 15mm, 18mm and 135mm and up come with a 114 front diameter. So if changing to these lenses, a different matte box back will have to be swapped to. A great practical advantage to them is their metadata system. When you pop one of these lenses onto an LDS PL mount with a 12-pin high-rose connector, it'll be able to supply the camera with information, such as focal length, focus distance, and t-stop. This information is precise and very useful for any VFX work in post-production that requires these measurements. This information will also be automatically sent through to ARRI-compatible wireless follow focus handsets. This means first ACs don't need to manually calibrate lenses or manually mark up distances, speeding up lens changes on set. All of these reasons, along with their exceptional build quality and small size, have contributed to them being a popular choice for DPs wanting a modern, fast set of cinema prime lenses. Thanks to all of you for watching and supporting the channel, and a special thanks to the patrons who get these videos early and ad-free. Otherwise, until next time, thanks for watching and goodbye.